Hello, I'm Caroline Bateman and I'm going to talk about using readers in formal exams. I'm going to explain what they are, how you use them, the restrictions of using them, the benefits of using them, and perhaps most importantly, the consequences of not using them. So what is a reader? It's very simple. It's an access arrangement or an exam accommodation that is given to students that have significant difficulties with reading. This is particularly relevant in the UK at the moment because the requirement for a student to be eligible for a reader changed in September 2019, and the requirement has been relaxed a little, so there's details of that down below for anyone in the UK, and I would really recommend you check that out. There are two types of reader, a human reader or a computer reader. I'm going to discuss both today. But first of all, it would be wise to share with you my experience with readers. I have 3 dyslexic children, only one of whom has significantly poor reading to be eligible for a reader in exams. And 9 years ago, his school said to me, "We think your son needs a reader for exams." And if I'm honest, I really resisted. I thought this was a stupid idea. I thought if we made it too easy for him, he would never push through and become a good reader. And I just thought, like, in the real world, you don't have somebody running around reading for you. So no, I do not want him to have a reader in exams. I am so grateful that the school pushed me and said, no, he really needs it. Prior to George having a reader, I always helped him revise for exams because he can't read. So I would read to him and he would revise. So I knew he was prepared for exams, but he kept getting D grades and I just didn't understand it. So I asked the school if I could see his exam paper, not thinking that they were being unfair, but trying to understand better what his difficulty was so I could equip him better for exams. And when I looked at his exam paper, I realized that he knew his stuff. He just didn't write very much. The act of reading the questions and for him writing the answers was so exhausting, and it took him so long. He just ran out of steam and only did the first couple of pages. But once he had a reader in place, he went from getting D's to A's, and this made a huge difference to his confidence, his love of learning, how much he enjoyed school, and his motivation to study. It's really hard to be motivated to study when you're working like crazy and you keep getting rubbish results. So ever since then, for the last 9 years, I can't say he's always got A stars in every exam, but his exam result has always reflected the amount of work or revision or preparation he did for that exam, which is what is fair. Whereas prior to that, his results never reflected the amount of work he did. And I don't think he'd have continued to work hard if that carried on being the case. So 9 years later on, he's 18, he is an A-star student, he got a scholarship for his 6th form, and at the moment he's expected to get great A-level grades and go on and study pure maths at university. But if 9 years ago his school hadn't pushed me for him to have a reader in exams, I doubt he'd have carried on doing formal exams. I think we'd have had to have gone a non-academic route, and that would have been such a waste of a very bright mind, and his contribution to society might have been greatly diminished because I didn't put a reader in place. And I'm very, very grateful that he went to an accredited dyslexia school that knew that he needed a reader and made that clear to me. But I'm very aware many children do not go to those schools, that parents and teachers just aren't aware that these students need readers in order to accomplish what they need in exams. Truthfully, when students take exams, they are not reading tests. They are tests of biology, of history, of maths. They are not reading tests. And so having a reader is a perfectly acceptable access arrangement. Now, I've already said there are two types of readers, and I'm just going to explain that briefly now. Here I have an exam paper, and a human reader would sit next to the student and would read the paper to them. They can read the instructions, they can read any inserts that come along with the paper, they can read the questions themselves, and they can even read back the candidate's answers to them. So that's a human reader. That's what my son had, and that was a huge benefit for him. But for the school, it's actually really hard because they have to recruit the personnel, they have to train them, they have to pay them. And as you get into more complicated exams, they actually have to be knowledgeable in order to read all the complex vocabulary. And what's probably even more restrictive is each reader and candidate combination needs to be in a separate room, because if there were many in one room, they would all disturb one another as they would all hear each other speak. So logistically and expense-wise, readers are very hard access arrangements for a school to accommodate. But computer readers are totally different. A computer reader is on a device, and all that needs to happen is the student needs to wear headphones, and as long as they're wearing headphones, there can be many people in a room all doing exams but not disturbing one another. And something else worth talking about is I mentioned that when students sit exams, they are not a test of reading, they are a test of their knowledge, and therefore why disadvantage people that struggle with reading? Let them be tested on their knowledge. But there are certain exams where they are testing reading. For example, English language GCSE, in which you have a comprehension paper, and this is actually the English language comprehension paper. Now, my son was entitled to a human reader, and with English language comprehension paper, that reader could read all the instructions on the front that say, you know, you have this long, you can spend this long in your exam. They could even read, oh, this is 4 marks, but they could not read the text. And the text is quite a long, complicated text, because it is teaching reading. And if the human reader read it, it would be a test of their reading, not the candidates. However, with a computer reader, it is classed as independent learning. And so the English comprehension text can be read as can any other exam paper. So a computer reader can read every exam, but a human reader can read every exam except for the ones that are testing reading. So now I'm going to go on the screen and show you what a computer reader looks like. Before I get started showing you the functionality, I want to make it clear that this is going to be a high-level overview of how to use a reader. I just want to make you aware. In separate videos, I'll go into the details of different types of readers and the settings, but let's just see how a student would use a reader. So here I've opened a PDF, which is the exam paper. This is exactly the same exam paper that every other student will have. The student with a computer reader will have both the electronic copy and the paper copy. I have also opened the insert. So this is the information that the student needs to be able to read in order to answer these questions. And this is the information that cannot be read by a human reader. Now, I personally find it a pain to click between 2 screens all the time. So what I would choose to do is I would choose to split my screen and have both open at exactly the same time. So I find that much easier. So I can come here and read this information, and I can read this information. And you'll notice now I've got a toolbar which has the ability to play. So this is a computer reader, and in this instance I'm using Claro Read, but there are other options from different suppliers, and I'll show you different options in separate videos. So I'm going to use this computer reader in order to read this paper. So what the student needs to do is they need to answer these questions by reading this text. And before I start, I want to tell you that I'm going to make a mistake on purpose, because I want to make you aware of the sort of problems that students will typically experience when they use a computer reader. So I'm just going to press play now. I've put the cursor where I want it to go. Obviously, I could have had everything read out from the very beginning, but I'm just going to start with this source text.
Using a time machine, an organization called Time Safari transports clients into the past to take part in hunting expeditions. A group that includes Mr. Eccles, together with their guide, Travis, is visiting a prehistoric jungle in order to shoot a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Source 1.
So there we saw that the configuration of the PDF was such that it didn't just continue to read the where I wanted, but because I'm used to using computer readers, I know to stop it, just to take it where I want to start reading and carry on.
The jungle was high and the jungle was broad. Sounds like music.
And what we are able to do is we are able to go into settings and change the voice and the speed. And here we'll see some other features that this is available in Claro Read Pro, but in exams, the administrator of the school can shut down the functionality that is available to ensure the access arrangements are being used correctly. So what would happen would be the student could then, having read the text, could come over here and use exactly the same functionality.
Read again the first part of the source, from lines 1 to 9.
To read the paper. With a computer reader, because this is totally independent work, candidate can read the same text as often as they want without feeling embarrassed asking somebody to read it again. And then with the pen, they can write the answers in their hard copy. If, like me, you're a poor reader and you're used to using computer readers, I think this is absolutely excellent functionality. It takes the pressure off candidates who are poor readers and does the reading for them, so it imitates the functionality they will have available to them in the real world. This is independent work and they are marked accordingly. I think this will help students who in the past might have failed English GCSE to now pass. English GCSE is a very, very important qualification to achieve in order to go on in further and higher education. You can see that a student needs to be practiced at using a computer reader. It is a skill that needs to be acquired, and it needs to be their normal way of working. They need to use it in their mock exams. They need to use it when they do homework. And then having a computer reader will be a great help to them when they are doing their formal exams. But you do need a device, and a lot of schools just don't have sufficient devices and they don't have the funds to buy them. But that's where parents are ingenious. We can fundraise, but if you don't know it's needed, then you don't know what to fundraise for. You don't know that something as simple as this can make a huge difference to the results that dyslexic students get and the opportunities that are available going forward. If a student doesn't get English language GCSE or the equivalent, because I'm sure every country has a language exam, if a student doesn't get this, then they are very limited in what they can go on and study. So my son couldn't go and study pure maths at university because he didn't have his English language GCSE. I really hope you found this video useful. Please share it with anyone else who could benefit. I'd be really grateful if you could give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Once you do, please hit the bell button and you'll be informed when I create other videos like this.